Well, welcome everyone to this week's episode of the Bamboo Lab podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brian Bosley, and for the better part of the past 26 years, I've had the distinct pleasure and honor of working along some of the world's top performers. And here what we do each week is we bring their ideas and strategies and thoughts and wisdom directly to you. If you feel like you're stuck on that hamster wheel in life and you're spinning and you're not going in the direction or at the pace you'd like, well, you have landed in the right spot. The Bamboo Lab is created and broadcast just for you, all you strivers, thrivers, and survivors out there. If you'd like to learn more about what we do here at the Bamboo Lab, please reach out directly to me at any time. We get emails and text all day long. My email is Brian, and that's Brian with an I, at bamboolab3, and that's the number 3.com. Brian at bamboolab3.com. All right, I'm going to read one heart letter we got out. As many of you know, our returning listeners, we are looking to collect 10,000 letters from subscribers and listeners of just saying how the Bamboo Lab podcast has changed their life. And this one just came back, and she said, "You should be very proud of all the wonderful connections you have made and the podcast you have produced. It's quite an undertaking, and you've nailed it." And today we're going to introduce another one of my new connections, one I'm extremely proud to introduce to the world in a few minutes. But before we do, I want to dedicate this episode to my brother David. My brother David, after 64 years on this earth, finally found the love of his life in Carrie. And when I watch him and I watch the two of them interact, it makes me realize that even tough, strong men can be kind and gentle. David, I love you, and I'm so proud of the both of you. Onward and upward in your love journey. Let's dissect. All right, today we have a guest that has changed my life. And I can honestly and openly say that. Today we have Dr. Gay Hendricks. Dr. Gay Hendricks and his wife, Katie, who is as accomplished as he is, call Ojai, California, their home. Gay is a Ph.D. and has been a leader in the field of relationship transformation and body-mind therapies for more than 45 years. He earned his Ph.D. in counseling psychology from Stanford. He served as a president of counseling psychology at the University of California, or Colorado, for 21 years. He's written more than 40 books, he and Katie, including bestsellers such as 5 Wishes, The Big Leap, Conscious Loving, Conscious Living, and we're going to get back to The Big Leap in just a few moments. Many of them were co-authored with his co-author and mate, Dr. Kathlyn Hendricks. And the two of them have changed the world. They've changed mine and many of the people I love and care about, including my family, friends, and clients. Gay has offered seminars worldwide and appeared on more than 500 radio and television shows, including Oprah, CNN, CNBC, 48 Hours, and others. In addition to his work with the Hendricks Institute, Gay is currently continuing his new mystery series that began with the first rule of 10. So with the greatest of honors and the greatest of appreciation for how he has impacted my life, I want to introduce you, Gay Hendricks. Welcome to the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Well, thank you very much, Brian. It's my pleasure and honor to be here with you. And thank you very much for all the good, kind words. And thank you particularly for mentioning my mystery novels. Very few people know that in my spare time, I write mystery novels. I have 2 series. One is about a Tibetan Buddhist private detective, and the other one is about a kind of a crosstown competitor of Sherlock Holmes back in London of 100 and some years ago. His name is Sir Errol Hyde, and I have a lot of fun with him. My Tibetan Buddhist guy is a little more sober and serious, but Sir Errol Hyde is just for fun. So look those up if you're a mystery fan.
Well, I can tell you I will now for sure, because I'm a big Sherlock Holmes fan. I love Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's writing. So I have a copy of The Big Leap actually in my hand now. I've got your book, The Genius Zone. I've ordered Conscious Living, which is now just came in the mail, I think yesterday, and I'm ordering Conscious Loving as well. So I'll be ordering a lot of your books and recommending many of them. In fact, for the audience out there, for the first 7 people individuals who text or email or Facebook message or Instagram message to me exactly what this podcast has done for you with Gay Hendricks, you're going to get a free copy of his book, The Big Leap. So, and maybe we'll throw in a couple of mystery novels as well. So please break those 10,000 heart letters in. Well,
right.
Well, Gay, I know I've studied you for a year and a half. Like I said, I'll share this with the audience in a minute, how you've directly changed my life. But can you please tell the audience in the Bamboo Lab podcast who are you? Where'd you come from? A little bit about your childhood, whatever you'd like to share.
Oh, great. Well, thank you very much. Well, right now, I live in my beautiful piece of paradise here that I've lived in for about 20-some years with my wife of 40 years. We just had our 40th wedding anniversary this year. We've been together 42 years since 1980, but we're married 40 years. And so she and I are partners in everything we do. We've written probably a dozen books together and have just shared everything for the past 42 years. So that's kind of the living miracle at the center of my life, is the relationship with Katie. I started out in a kind of a rough and tumble way. I was born in such a way that I wasn't exactly welcomed with cheers when I got here due to the circumstances of my birth. I was very unexpected and came along at a very difficult time. My father died during my mother's pregnancy with me, so it was rough and tumble there for a few years after I was born. Thankfully, we had my grandmother next door who kind of took me over and raised me for most of my early childhood until my mother could get her feet back on the ground. I have an older brother who's 85, and I appreciated what you were saying about your brother early. My brother is a wonderful guy. He's got Parkinson's now and is having some tough times, but he and I talk all the time, and he's a real inspiration to me. I was born also with a glandular disorder where I gained weight very easily. My mother and my brother are skinny as rails, but I was the fat kid in the family, and nobody could figure out why, because I was basically eating the same thing. And later on, it was discovered that I had kind of an upside-down situation, since my mother had apparently, when my father died, she'd stopped eating, and she lost weight during her pregnancy with me, so that she started out at 120 pounds, and by the time I was born, she weighed 89 pounds. And they think it reset some kind of a thermostat inside me, so it made me store fat easily. And so, but all that was medically unknown. I was taken around to, all sorts of different specialists when I was a kid. They put me on different diets and gave me injections, and they gave me diet pills, all sorts of stuff. But it never really, until I started exercising and taking responsibility for it, it never changed. I never figured out what the medical problem was until I was in my 20s, I guess, and then they made some discoveries. So to make a long story short, I started out as a fat kid and gradually lost the weight and sort of took responsibility for my body and became an athlete. And now I weigh about what I weighed for the past bunch of years, which is about 180 pounds, and I am about 6 feet tall, so I kind of look like I'm a tall athlete, and I work out 3 days a week with a personal trainer. So I'm 77 now, and as you probably read, your muscle strength starts to decline in your 60s sharply, and so I decided I didn't want to make that happen. So I work out with a trainer, working out with weights 3 days a week, and I also play a lot of golf. So I'm kind of the use it or lose it mentality when it comes to exercise. I really like to keep a lot of blood pumping through me and a lot of oxygen flowing through me.
Yeah, every picture I've seen of you and on camera, you certainly don't look like you had a glandular problem anymore.
No, I kind of cured that on my own. And I also later on discovered the right dosage of thyroid medication to take, so that really helped stabilize it over time.
Wonderful. So with your childhood, Gabe, you said you were born at a difficult time. Your father passed away. Before you were born, your mother had some health issues while you being pregnant with you. Who was your greatest inspiration growing up?
Well, my grandparents were definitely my greatest inspiration. I had the great fortune to have both grandparents living next door, my mom's mother and dad, and they were just two of the most amazing people. My grandmother was incredibly loving, and my granddad, he was a strong, silent guy, but didn't say much, but he was by my side when I hit my first baseball and threw my first threw my first football, and he was always playing catch with me in the side yard. I was a baseball nut when I was a kid. That was my big obsession in sports, was baseball. And we had a minor league team in town, and my granddad was the man who ran the physical facility for the baseball team. And so I grew up partly in a baseball park, too, because I was there all the time with my granddad while he was running the baseball park and taking care of all the things like that. So my first job, actually, when I was a little kid, I was paid 50 cents to run the lights on the scoreboard. In those days, when a player had a strike at home, you flipped a switch and it lit up a light on the billboard out in the middle of center field. And so I was the kid that ran the lights, so I had to pay attention to where the balls and the outs were and everything like that. So, but that I was probably the lowest paid human being in Leesburg, Florida, but I thought it was a great job to have when I was 10 years old.
The least paid, but you probably appreciated that 50 cents more than anyone else appreciated their money.
Yeah.
Well, one last personal question, Gay, and you can choose to answer this any way you'd like. What in your life, and you've seen a lot, you've traveled the world, you've come from a humble beginnings, and quite frankly have done some extraordinary things with your life and changed the world. What is the most difficult thing you've gone through from your perspective?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Get the latest insights from top mortgage pros on Mortgage Connects, a podcast by MGIC. We interview thought leaders from across the industry to share their wide-ranging expertise and candid views on critical market developments and current housing trends. Our guests reveal highly effective marketing and referral strategies, training tips and best practices, and what you can expect from the mortgage market in the future. Hear from experts like best-selling author Todd Duncan, U.S. Bank's Lenny McNeil, and Freddie Mac's Danny Gardner. Listen to Mortgage Connects on your favorite app or at mortgageconnects.com today.
Well, I think there have been a couple of times in my life, but the one that came to mind immediately and actually brought some tears to my eyes just right here in this moment was, I think my toughest time really was when my grandmother died when I was 22 years old. And it just, it hit me like a proverbial ton of bricks. There was some way in which I thought my grandmother was eternal, and I guess you get that way when you're a kid. And I think I'd never really let go of that expectation. And then one day she had a stroke in the mid-'60s and never recovered from it. And I was at her bedside with my mother and my aunt when a family decision was made to, turn off the machinery and everything. And that was one of the toughest things. In the 6 months after that, it was just so, almost every breath I took was clouded up with grief about my grandmother dying, and the shock of it too, because I realized there was a way in which I was suddenly a grown-up. I think as long as my grandmother was alive, I thought of myself as a child, as her boy, because I was always her boy from the time I was born, and the apple of her eye, and same thing with my granddad. And so it was a real stunner for me, and took me, because I acted out a lot, over the next 6 months, I overate and smoked 2 or 3 packs of Marlboros a day and had relationships with lots of people that I shouldn't have been having relationships with if I'd had my wits about me, and all the dumb things that people probably do in their teens and 20s. Fortunately, I was never a drinker or never got into drugs and that kind of stuff. So that's how I discovered the power of body therapy too, breathing and movement and that kind of thing. I found that I could disappear my cravings for things if I just learned to breathe with them rather than try to hold my breath to keep them out of my consciousness. And that led me into all sorts of body-centered therapies that's in our books. And then later on, fortunately, I cured myself of enough of my relationship problems that I met the most amazing woman when I was 34 years old. And my life really took on a whole new quality then, because over the next 10 years, we created all the things that went into our book, Conscious Loving, and that we all tried at home, just Katie and me first, and then we did it with our clients. And then one day, an up-and-coming talk show host. Oprah called and said, "Hey, I heard about you guys. Want to come on my show?" And so we were in Chicago. Like I say, we were working with 10 couples in our living room one day, and the next day we were working with 10 million people in the Oprah audience. And it was a real stunning change. I was a university professor at the time, Brian, and I complained all the time about it, even though I loved part of it. I loved the teaching part of being a university professor, but I hated going all the committee meetings and the endless boring meetings about this and that. And so it was kind of driving me nuts. And after Oprah struck, things changed very much. So the university became kind of almost like a part-time job. And then I decided to move on and just set up my own private university, the Hendricks Institute. So that's what I did in 1995. And so now we're coming up on the 30th anniversary of us moving out to California and setting up our institute out here.
I assume after Oprah called, your living room got a little bit smaller.
Yes, it did.
A little too tight.
It ended up funny. After Oprah, we ended up going from working with couples in our living room because we couldn't find the right kind of office space to having a 4,000 square foot facility in downtown Santa Barbara. It's this gigantic room that you could probably hold a football game in. And so we really expanded quite a bit. We've downsized now, though, because when we moved back over here to Ojai, we wanted to have a bit of a quieter life. And so we gave up our place in downtown Santa Barbara, and we just rent a facility here when we have trainings here. Although these days, a lot of our trainings are done online, which is really convenient for people because they don't have to spend the money to come to California.
What I found very fascinating was I was watching an interview that you and Katie gave, and you were talking about, I believe it was the first time you were on Oprah, and you were in the back room, the green room, whatever the title is, and the producer came back and said, "Okay, which one of you is the talker?" And you said we both talk equally, and they didn't like that. They didn't think it worked when couples both talked equally amount. They wanted one to be the primary talker and one to be the more submissive person, it sounded like.
Yeah, well, and the guy said, "It's usually the man." And this, of course, did not please my wife too much. She turned 16 stages of red and steam came out of her ears. But anyway, we insisted that they treat us both as equal talkers. And so they said, "Okay, we'll set it up differently." But once they set it up, they started doing it that way when other couples would come on too. So it was really a good informative moment for us. And golly, just the other thing the producer said, here, Katie and I have both been, psychotherapists for, now 50 years, but in those days, 20, 25 years. And the producer comes running back and he says, "Okay, one thing, don't do anything that looks like therapy." What? And he said, "Yeah, we had some therapist on and now we're getting sued." All that kind of stuff. He said, "Don't do any therapy." And so that was really funny to try to dance around all the strange things. And also just the experience of being on a big talk show like that is really different from the smaller ones because like on Oprah, they have, maybe 150 people in the studio audience. It's packed in there, where most talk shows are, be like 50 people, where it's shot to look like 150 people, but it's not a very large group of people. But they're going out there, it's kind of like walking out into the Colosseum in Rome 2,000 years ago. You don't know if the people are going to go thumbs up or thumbs down on you.
Well, my assumption is they went thumbs up because she had you back on. So.
Oh, yeah. And we can always tell, even now, where Oprah reruns are running in the world. Suddenly we'll get a flurry of book sales in Bangalore, India, and we'll say, "Thank you, Oprah."
Well, you don't get much bigger than Oprah.
No, she's a wonderful human being, too. I wish we had people like her running for politics because she could transform the country overnight. But we got what we got. And and she's taking it a little easier. She lives a stone's throw from us, so she's taking it a little easier over there on her place in Montecito.
Well, she has a much-deserved opportunity to take it easy. So that woman has done some amazing things with her life. What an inspiration.
I'll tell you something that almost nobody knows about her, too, unless you've been on the show. At the end of the show, the first thing she does is take off her shoes, and the second thing she does is she goes over to the exit door as the audience is leaving and shakes hands with every single person in the audience. And like I say, this is a lot of people. And, after doing a show like that, I've literally been on shows where the host disappears the moment the camera stops rolling. They don't even say goodbye or hello or thank you very much or anything like that. It's over, and you're back in the green room again. So I just want to honor her for being a woman of the people who, I don't know how many hands she's shaken at many of all those thousands of shows, but it's quite a remarkable thing to have that much heart in your work.
Well, one thing we talk a lot on here, Gay, on the Bamboo Lab podcast is I firmly believe that one of our primary roles in life is to increase the sense of self-worth of other people. When you're with them, to make them feel like they are the most important person in your universe at that time, and how much that can transform lives. And you can see that Oprah takes that responsibility to a very, very high level, and that's why she is who she is. And not a person in this world does not know the name Oprah Winfrey.
That's for sure.
So I would like to jump into, your study and your research that went into the book, The Big Leap, because that's the book that changed my life. And I want to share it to the audience. And I read this book for the first time in early 2021. And when I ordered it and read it, I thought, where has this been all of my life? I was told by a former mentor 25 years ago, a mentor who was grooming me to take his position in a company in the corporate world. And he said, every time you have success, you self-implode. You do something stupid. You make a bunch of money, you spend it all. You waste it. You have a big promotion and you do something dumb. And I've came up with the concept over the years of fear of success, and I've dissected myself and over. I've worked with clients over and over to help them determine their fear of success. It wasn't until I read The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks in early 2021 that it really was a punch in the nose. And the idea of this, the ulp, I love that. I tell myself, no, I'm ulping right now. So can you share a little bit, because I can go on and on this, but can you share with me where this came from, the Big Leap?
Well, yes, it came from my own experience,
which most good things do.
Well, first thing I noticed in myself, I think I'm sure I had self-sabotaged myself many times, but the first time I really noticed it was in my 20s when I lost all that weight. I lost 100 pounds in one particular year, and I started this new diet, and I started eating a certain way, which was basically, I'll share the secrets of my 100-pound weight loss, which is I started eating only things that I'd never eaten before. And I decided that everything I'd ever eaten before has made me fat, so I'm going to choose new things that I'd never eaten before. And that led me into a relationship with such things as vegetables and fruit and things that I just never touched before. For me, before I lost all that weight, a good lunch was a cheeseburger, some fries, and a vanilla malt. That was the extent of my healthy diet at the time. But anyway, I started eating only fruits and vegetables and things I'd never touched before, unusual meats I'd never tried before, and fish and things like that. But everything with a new aspect to it, trying to feed my body something brand new. And in the first month of doing that, I lost about 30 or 35 pounds, and I was feeling like $1 million. And I was walking down the street in Cambridge, Massachusetts, back in, what year was it? 1969. And I walked past a family, an ice cream shop where a family of 4 was devouring this gigantic banana split. I could see bananas and chocolate and caramel sauce and all sorts of stuff on this. And I just completely lost my head. And I went in there and I ordered one of them for me, not for 4 people. And I chowed down on this thing. And for about 20 minutes, I felt like $1 million plus, because I had all that sugar pouring through me. But 20 minutes later, I was walking down the street, just kind of bouncing along, and I got hit by the worst stomach ache I'd ever had in my life. I actually doubled over on the street, and people were saying, "Are you okay, sir? Are you okay?" And I mean, the real answer was no, I wasn't okay. But so that moment told me, oh gosh, what happened? I was feeling so good, but I I exceeded my capacity for feeling good and sabotaged myself. And that was the first moment I noticed what I came to call the upper limit problem. Later on, when I was working on my doctorate at Stanford back in the early 70s, I was blessed with having a lot of clients from the new thing that was happening around Palo Alto called Silicon Valley. And so this was before Apple or anything like that, but there were all these semiconductor firms, and Hewlett-Packard had both been Stanford people, and so it was all right around there. And so I ended up working for a number of years with a lot of very high-functioning tech executives, but they had this problem to the extreme. They would have a big win at work, and then they'd go home and have a giant blow-up with their wife or family or partner, and this got to be so predictable to me that I started actually warning people after they had a big win. Now, watch out here, consider this like going over a speed bump. Do it very mindfully. Don't put the pedal to the metal now and blast over that thing, because you'll rattle your fillings in your teeth. So I got people a little bit programmed to look out for stuff. That didn't stop them all the time, but that's where I really learned about the upper limit problem, was watching how people would have these big wins and then either criticize themselves or doubt themselves or start an argument, or in some extreme cases, people would literally get physically sick after the big win. And so people used their bodies as an upper limit problem. And so I began to study this, particularly back in the 80s. And I also, along that same time, Brian, I discovered this other concept that I started calling the zone of genius, or the genius zone. In my new book, The Genius Zone, I call it that rather than the zone of genius, just because it's fewer words. But what I'm speaking about when I talk about the genius zone is looking for those things in your life that you are uniquely suited and love to do, and to focus more on doing more of those kinds of things, either in your current job or in creating something new where you can do that. But I began to see the value of putting a primacy on what you most love to do and what makes your biggest contribution to the people around you. And like one of my mentors, Abraham Maslow, used to say, it doesn't matter if your genius is writing a great symphony or making a great soup. They both have that quality of, they're about, they're certainly about success, but they're also about how you get to success, the amount of attention you pay to your soup or your symphony. So it's all about finding that genius in yourself and nurturing that and bringing that forward. And like in my own case, when I first started thinking about this, I realized I was only spending about 10% of my own time, my own work time, in my genius zone. And so I started systematically. First, I made a commitment to increasing that, and then I began systematically working on it, first trying to get to 50%. It took me a few years to get to 50%. Then I set 70%. It took me a few more years to get to 70%. Then I got real bold, and I said, I want to be 100% by the end of the century. That was last century. So somewhere around 1990, I got inspired to say, I want to spend all of my time doing only exactly what I love to do and what makes the biggest contribution. And by golly, it took a while, but I got there.
Oh, good.
And so for the last 20-some years, I've been blessed with a life where I only do things I love to do, and I do them with some of the most amazing people on earth. And that, to me, has never felt like work to me. I feel more excited when I wake up in the morning at 77 years old than I did when I was 57 years old.
I love that. That is such an inspiration for me, and I'm assuming it's going to be such an inspiration for the audience. Gabe, can you share, why do you feel that, or what does your experience show that the causes of why we tend to hit that upper limit problem when we're having a great moment in life?
Yes, well, that's a great question. And the answer to that in one word is fear. And the Big Leap, I document several big fears that we've discovered in highly functioning people. And almost everybody has some version of one or more of these fears. The first big fear that so many people carry around, even wildly successful people, is a fear that deep down inside they're fundamentally wrong or fundamentally bad or have fundamentally done something that they can't ever recover from. And so they carry that around down inside them and they wallpaper over it, and then through sheer effort sometimes get to have a lot of good success in their life. But I tell the story, I got a call one day when we lived over on the beach in Carpinteria from a neighbor of mine up the beach who was a very famous entertainer, and we'd had dinner over there a couple of times and knew him and his wife, and he called me because he was having a panic attack. And the trigger for the panic attack was that he was due to go down to Hollywood the next day and have his handprints put in the Walk of Fame down there. Mm-hmm. And I forget, his were going to be next to somebody, I can't remember, it was some very famous person, like, I don't know, John Wayne or somebody like that. And so it brought up this panic attack because down inside he had this fundamental belief that he didn't deserve love, didn't deserve money, didn't deserve the good things of the world. And he was still carrying that around the day before he was getting his palm prints in. So he came over and we stood out on his balcony and we just worked on that for a long time, with talking about it, and I had him do some breathing work to open up to it and that kind of thing. So I'm happy to say that he did go down and get his handprints there, and I wish I could tell you who it is, and you could go look at him yourself. But it had a happy ending, in other words. And the important thing, it doesn't matter what level of success you're at, look for whether you're carrying around an old fear that you're fundamentally wrong or fundamentally bad and fundamentally flawed in some way. You're the wrong skin color, or you're the wrong gender, or you're the wrong whatever it is. And just take a moment to just let yourself appreciate yourself for who you are. Just who you are is what's worth celebrating. The second big fear that a lot of people I work with have is what I call a fear of outshining. They're afraid to step up into the light themselves. They're okay with other people being out there in the light, but they don't feel like they deserve to shine at the same time. And I work with a lot of people that are carrying that around. I work with people, because I'm close to Hollywood, I work with a lot of people in the entertainment business, and so many of them are operating at a level where they're kind of bubbling under, or they get to play secondary roles or that kind of thing, and they want to step up in. But we find that they have some ultimate fear down inside of really letting themselves shine. And so that's the second one. Another one, a lot of people are afraid of being more successful and letting themselves shine more because they're already busy and overburdened, and they're afraid that more success will bring more burdens in their life. And the solution to that, of course, is to work smarter, not to work more when you get more successful. But a lot of people do resent the burdens that come along with success.
I love that. I just want to take a moment to recap for the audience what I got out of this, because I think this is a life-changing lesson, and it's a life-changing wisdom. This idea that we all have, that at least the majority of us I have it, this upper limit problem, where we become successful, we get to a point of true love in our lives or true happiness and contentment, and we tend to find a way to self-sabotage, as Gay did after eating all the things he never ate and losing 30 to 35 pounds and going out and gorging on ice cream and getting physically sick. We all do the same things, just in different fashions. And I think it's really important for us to really dissect what old fears we are carrying around from our childhood or from earlier in life that we've wallpapered over, as he said. And at this point now, they're coming back to haunt us. Every time we stretch out of our comfort zone and become a better version of ourselves, that comfort zone, that old fear comes back and tries to pound us back down. I want to share a personal story that had a big impact on me and how Gay's work and writings have changed my life. I went to Hawaii in late April, early March this year with the love of my life and her family. And I can honestly say at 55 years old, the past year of my life has been the greatest of my life. I have met the most amazing woman I've ever met, with an amazing daughter who I love and cherish. I have become a grandfather to my grandson, Jack. I live close to both of my biological children, Ashley and Dawson. My business has succeeded. My podcast has taken off. And all of these things just were, I was at the peak of my life in late April, early March. And quite frankly, I can honestly say to the audience, I have never truly been in love in my life. I've always steered away from true love. I've always hidden from true love due to some childhood issues that happened to me when I was 4 years old. And I finally opened up to true love and found it, and met a woman who was my equal or better. And in Hawaii, on her birthday, I said I wanted out of the relationship. Middle of the day, beautiful sunny day, looking out at the ocean. And within minutes, I had to ask myself, why did I just do that? It broke her heart. It destroyed her inside. And I had no rational reason for why. So 2 days later, on the flight home, I sat back in a seat by myself in the airplane, and I started writing. And I started journaling. And it came to me, Gay's words. You have hit your upper limit problem. You never thought you deserved happiness and true love and success as you've been reaching it, and you pounded yourself back down. I felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt inherently flawed and beaten and broken inside. And if it was not for the work of Gay and his co-creator, Katie, as well, and the work they've done, I never would have come to that conclusion. And I'm happy to say that the love of my life, Kelly, and I have worked through the problem. I shared with her the problem and told her that it was all based out of my fear. And now after a few months, we are completely back on track. And I can say probably healthier and stronger than we would have been had that not even happened, because now we have a very good understanding of some of my limitations. And it's helped me pour through my upper limit problem and dramatically change my life. And not just the love I share with her and for her, but in my professional and personal life and other arenas as well. So for that, Gay, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Whoa, well, thank you so much. You're the one that did the work, so blessings to both of you, and be sure and send me an invitation to the wedding.
I certainly will. Thank you so much. One final question. I know you've got to get to the gym. You're a busy man. You've been up since 4 o'clock this morning?
Yeah, I naturally wake up around 4 or 4:30. I don't have an alarm clock or anything like that, but I go to sleep at 10 and wake up at 4 or 4:30, so that's kind of my routine. And I do a lot of my writing early in the morning. I write usually from 5 to 7:30, and then for the rest of the day, I do stuff like I'm doing right now.
I love it. Well, can you share with the audience the concept that you've come up with that is the ultimate success mantra? Something that when I read your book a year and a half ago, I started implementing it twice a day, and it has made a major impact on my life. And I've shared it with many clients. I've printed it up on little label makers and put it on my family's computers. I have it on my laptop, so it's a reminder consistently to read this. And I even shared it with a client this morning in my 8:30 coaching session. I gave him the exercise of doing this. Can you share with us the I Expand in Abundant Success mantra?
Yes. I use it all the time. It's the background of my life. I came up with this many years ago to put everything that was important into one sentence that I could circulate through my mind. And I've gone through different versions of it, but the version I use now goes like this. I expand every day in love, creativity, and abundance as I inspire others to do the same. So it has two parts to it. The first part is my personal expansion. I expand every day. That's what I want, to expand in my ability to love and to be creative and to have abundance in my life. And then the second thing I want to do is I want to inspire other people to do that through my teachings, through my books, through my personal inspiration or whatever I do. I want people to be inspired by that so that it's helpful to those around me. So that really has organized my life for, the last 50 years or so. So in a way, I haven't ever really had to work because, see, if you're doing something you love, you can't really call it work. I don't think I work. I haven't worked a day really in the past 50 years, even though I've written 50 books. None of them have felt like work to me.
Is there a way? I have yours down here. I've changed it a bit. Is it okay to change the success mantra? Can I read mine? And this is the one I read twice daily, and sometimes I read it during the day as well. I adapted mine and I said, I expand in abundance, success, health, love, and wealth as I lead and inspire others to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. It just flows out of me so naturally when I say it. And it has had such an impact on changing the way my brain thinks and feels and functions.
Well, blessings upon you. I'm so glad that you heard the music of The Big Leap as well as reading the words. So I'm really glad I got to hang out with you and inspire your audience a little bit.
Well, you certainly did that, Gay. And I'd like to, if you don't mind, after we wrap up, do you mind if I steal 3 minutes of your time off air?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Wonderful. Is there any last piece of wisdom you'd like to share with the Bamboo Lab audience, Gay?
Well, love as much as you can from wherever you happen to find yourself in life. That's always the best path.
Love as much. Can you repeat that again, please? Love as much as you can.
Love as much as you can from wherever you are in life. If you're feeling unlovable, love your unlovableness.
All right. So, audience, Bamboo Lab podcast listeners, love as much as you can from wherever you are in life. I can't imagine a better way to sign off today. Gay, thank you. I share with you, and I'll share with the Bamboo Lab audience. I have been speaking and coaching individuals for almost 26 years now. This is the 36th podcast this year. This was the first time in years I can say I was actually nervous before doing an event like this. I had to sit down and do 15 minutes of meditation in my office to calm my nerves prior to Gay reaching out to me. Because of the work he's done, the work that he and Katie have done and their institute are still doing, that has made me have such a great, immense amount of respect for him and the way he has changed not only my life, but my loved ones' lives, my clients' lives, and the world as a whole. So, Gay, thank you so much for being such an honored guest in the Bamboo Lab podcast.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Blessings.
Thank you. Well, Bamboo Lab, we're going to sign off for this week. It's a pleasure, as always, talking with all of you and bringing such wonderful guests, such as Mr. Gay Hendricks today. Please, if you liked the things that Gay said, which I know you did, please smash that like button. Please give us a review, and please share us with 3 other people. We want to spread the wisdom from Gay around the world because this stuff is powerful, life-changing wisdom. In the meantime, everyone, please get out there and sculpt your lives. Get out there and strive every day to be better today than the version of the self you were yesterday. Show love and respect to others. And please, by all means, live consciously. I love you all.